Hi, it's Sally, and welcome back. So, the last 3 weeks we've been talking about timelines, how you're consciously choosing which version of your life you're stepping into. We've talked about the negative timeline versus the growth timeline, and we've talked about planting seeds, small, consistent actions that create real transformation. So, today we're going bigger. Because here's what most people don't realize. When you shift your own timeline, you're not just shifting your life, you're contributing to something much larger, a revolution, a shift in consciousness, a new way of being. So let's talk about that. There's this idea that if you want to change the world, you need to go out there and do something big. Start a movement, lead a protest, create a massive organization. And maybe some people, they're called to do that. But most of us, we're not. Most of us are just trying to figure out our own lives, our own healing and our own truth. And we think that's small. We think that's selfish. And we think that doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. But that's not true. Here's what actually happens, okay? Every time you choose the growth timeline, over the negative one, then you're shifting the collective consciousness. Every time you question your conditioning instead of just accepting it, you're breaking a pattern that's been running for generations. Every time you live from your true self instead of the false identity that you built to survive, you're showing others it's possible. You are the revolution. And that's not because you're out there changing everyone else, but because you're changing yourself. And when you change yourself, you change the energy that you bring into every room, every conversation, every interaction. You stop participating in the old systems, the conditioning, the fear, the separation, and you start living from truth, from love, and from alignment. Now that's revolutionary. Now, most people are still operating from conditioning. They're reacting, playing small, running on autopilot, and living from fear. And that just creates more of the same, more war, more confusion, and more division. But when you do the inner work, and when you uncover your true self and you live from that place, you're literally creating a new solution. And that's not by trying to fix everyone else, but by embodying a different way of being. And that ripples out. It has to, because energy is contagious. This is the revolution timeline. So, what does it actually mean to create new solutions? It means you stop participating in the old patterns. You stop that war within yourself. Most people are at war with themselves and they're fighting their thoughts, resisting their feelings, and just judging themselves constantly. And then they wonder why there's so much conflict in the world. But when you make peace with yourself, when you stop the internal war, you naturally stop contributing to external conflict. You don't react with the same way. You don't engage with that same judgment. And you don't perpetuate the same cycles over and over again. Now that's a new solution. You stop creating from confusion I mean, most people create their lives from confusion. They don't know who they are underneath the conditioning. So they're just copying what everyone else is doing. They're chasing the same things, following the same paths, and repeating the same patterns. But when you get clear on your true self, when you know who you are and what you're actually here to do, you start creating from clarity. And that clarity, it just cuts through the noise. It creates something real, something aligned, something that actually serves. Now, that's what I call a new solution, you know? You stop waiting for someone else to fix it. And most people are waiting. They're waiting for the government to change or waiting for leaders to step up, just waiting for someone else to create the world they want to live in. But, you know, here's the truth. We are the ones we're waiting for. Not in some abstract, inspirational way, but in a real way, in a practical way. Now, when you stop waiting and you start living from your true self, and you start planting seeds and making aligned choices and embodying the change, then you become the solution. You know, not for everyone and not for the whole world, but just for your corner of it. And when enough people do that, the whole system shifts. And that's what I call the lightning flash revolution. It's not loud, not dramatic. It's just shift, a new frequency, a new way of being, a collective awakening. Here's what happens when individuals choose the revolution timeline. One person wakes up, they start questioning their conditioning, living from truth, making different choices. Their energy shifts and people around them feel it. And that's not because they're preaching or pushing, but because their presence is different. Others start to wake up. They see someone living authentically and think, maybe I can do that too, you know? And they feel permission that they didn't have before. A ripple effect begins. One becomes two, two become five, five become 20, and it spreads like that. The collective consciousness shifts. Now, not all at once and not all, you know, not overnight, but steadily, consistently, and irreversibly. And this is how real change happens. It's not top down, you know, and it's not through force. And not by convincing anyone to think the same way, but through individuals doing their inner work, embodying their truth, living their real identity instead of that conditioned one. You don't have to change the whole world. You just have to change your world. And when you do that, when you really do the work and step into that revolution timeline, then you contribute to something much bigger than yourself. Now, I'll be honest with you, for a long time, I felt helpless about the way the world was, you know, and it really did bother me. I'd see the news, the division, the conflict, the suffering, and I'd think, what can I do about any of it? You know, I'm just one person living my small life, just trying to figure out my own stuff. How does that change anything, you know? And then I realized that I was still living from conditioning. I was still reacting, still playing small, and still running on patterns that weren't mine. I wasn't at peace within myself at all, you know? So, how could I contribute to peace in the world? I wasn't clear on my own truth, you know? So, how could I create clarity anywhere else? And I definitely wasn't free from my own mental prison. So, how could I help anyone else find freedom? You know? And then something clicked. Really a revolution starts within. So there and then I stopped trying to fix the world and I started doing my inner work. I started questioning my conditioning, uncovering my true selves and planting seeds every day. I stopped participating in old patterns, the reactivity, the judgment, the fear, the division. And I just started living from a different place, from truth, alignment, and love. And you know what happened? My relationships started to change. The conversations I had were different. And the energy I brought into spaces shifted, and I wasn't trying to change anyone. I was just being different myself. And I guess some people began to notice, some way. Not everyone, but just the odd few. They'd say there's something different about you, or I feel calm when I'm around you, or, how did you get to be so clear? And, you know, it was at that point when I realized this is it. This is the revolution. Not me standing on a stage telling people what to do, just me living from my true self and letting that ripple out naturally without trying. And as you know, I'm building this community, I'm creating content, I'm making music that I love, and I'm just sharing what I've learned. And it's not because I've got everything figured out, I've said this before, but it's because I choose the revolution timeline. I choose the growth timeline. And I choose to do the inner work for transformation. And every person who watches these videos does the work. They plant the seeds. They choose their true self over their conditioning. We're all part of it. We are the ones we've been waiting for, and not someday, but right now. So here's what I'm going to invite you to do this week. And think to yourself, where are you still in your old pattern? Take a few minutes and ask yourself that. Ask yourself, where am I still at war with myself? Or what am I resisting, fighting, or judging in myself? And what would inner peace actually look like? And where am I still creating from confusion? Am I following someone else's path or am I following my own path? And do I actually know what my true self wants? Where am I still waiting for someone else to fix it? What change do I want to see that I can embody in myself? And what small action could I take instead of just waiting around? So write these down. Be honest with yourself. No judgment here, and just embody one new solution this week. And just start with that. Pick one area where you're going to stop participating in the old pattern and start embodying this new solution. Maybe it's making peace with a part of yourself that you've been fighting for a long time. Or it could be getting clear on one truth that you've been avoiding. Maybe taking one action that you've been waiting for permission to take. Or maybe it's choosing love over fear in one specific situation. Maybe just speaking your truth instead of staying silent to keep the peace. Just pick one, You're not trying to save the world, but you're shifting your world. And begin to notice the ripple. As you embody this new solution, then begin to notice what shifts around you. Do your conversations change or do people respond to you differently? do new opportunities show up. Now, you might not see it immediately, but just pay attention, because that ripple is real. And when you change your energy, you change what you attract and how you impact others. And that's what I call the revolution timeline. That's how we create new solutions, and that's how the collective shifts, one person at a time, starting with you. So, as always, if you're serious about this work and you want support while you're stepping into the revolution timeline, as you know, I'm building a community for women who are ready to do this work. Real conversations, real growth, no surface level stuff. And this is where we do this work together. The link's in the description below. I would love for you to join me. And that's it for this series on timelines. So next Monday, we'll be starting something new. So see you then.
Brighter day. So be who you're meant to